Hi, Alan Schimmel, DevOps.com here at the DevOps Enterprise Summit 2015, and I'm with Steve Bauer, IT Solutions Architect at Cisco. Steve, welcome.
Thank you.
Have I mangled your title?
You did just fine.
Okay. So Steve, you presented today on a very interesting subject that some in our audience might find interesting, and that is on the parallelizing, if that's a word, of QA and testing and so forth, using an electric solution. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we're using the Electric Accelerator product to perform cluster-based tests and alternate types of builds that really help the engineers' cycle time issues. So when an engineer needs to do some testing, if that testing can be performed in parallel across many cores, then we can get that to happen in a very reduced amount of time.
Excellent. And so Steve, you know, some of our audience may or may not be familiar with that. What, applicability to this? You're doing this at Cisco, I assume?
Yeah, I run the infrastructure that the engineers use to perform these types of operations. We've used Electric Accelerator for 4 or 5 years now at this point, and most people generally associate it with performing builds. And one of the little pieces of it is called this Electrify Utility, and it's able to take any commands that you want to send out to the cluster and send them out for you. So if you need to do something in parallel, like you've got some tests that you want to do as many at a time as you can, you're usually limited by the number of CPUs in your system to be able to run those in parallel. But when you're using this Electrify utility to send all of those jobs out to the cluster, then you can use many more CPUs that are part of the cluster. And this Electrify utility takes care of a lot of the data that the simulations or the analysis need to function, and makes it available to the processes that are happening on the cluster pretty much transparently. So you can worry about getting your simulations or your analysis to work properly, as opposed to the mechanics of farming these things out to a cluster that happen in parallel.
Excellent. And Steve, any feedback from the audience?
We had a question about what do engineers do with all this free time? and really it's not free time, right? We know that if your processes get a little bit faster, what really happens is you can make more iterations of your development process, which helps a lot. We had some other folks who looked interested for some questions, but they didn't speak up. I'll try and track them down a little bit later.
Well, but you know what? The important thing is getting the word out there and advancing the conversation.
Yeah.
And that's what DevOps Enterprise Summit is all about as well.
Definitely.
So, Steve, thank you for presenting at DevOps Enterprise Summit on behalf of IT Revolution, Electric Cloud, and DevOps.com. Thanks for appearing here today.
Great.
And enjoy the rest of the summit.
Okay, thanks. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Alan Schimmel, DevOps.com, with Steve Bauer of Cisco.